I wanted to avoid this topic, but it's just too big now. And I feel like somebody needs to address it. So I guess that somebody is going to be me. I'm not super excited about it because this is a topic that makes people very emotional. I'm just asking, please hear me out, and I'm going to do my best. If you have counter evidence, I welcome you. So you can send it to me. My email is right on my website. You can go there and send me your counter evidence. All right. So have you heard the conspiracy theory about the Scofield Reference Bible? I only heard of this a few months ago. This was new for me. I became aware of it when I saw this tweet from Candace Owens. Somebody asked her, genuinely curious as to what led you to the Catholic Church. Her response, learning about the true origins of the Scofield Bible. And I thought, what in the world is she even talking about? Again, this was completely new. I'd never heard this. So I wanted to start investigating, because then all of a sudden, once I saw this, I started seeing it kind of popping up other places. So just sort of a rough introduction into what the Scofield Reference Bible is. We're going to read a little bit on the Wikipedia entry. The Scofield Reference Bible is widely circulated study Bible, edited and annotated by the American Bible student Cyrus I. Scofield. It popularized dispensationalism at the beginning of the 20th century. Published by Oxford University Press and containing the entire text of the traditional Protestant King James Version, it first appeared in 1909 and was revised by the author in 1917. This Bible is arguably the first widely circulated study Bible, because it did something kind of unique in that it published the notes, the study notes, with the Bible itself. Now, we're very used to that. There are so many study Bibles out there. I like the NIV study Bible. There's the ESV study Bible. There's so many study Bibles. But this is kind of a newish thing. The idea of printing what is basically a commentary bound together with the Bible itself was a fairly new concept. And the notes were written for regular people. The idea that you could buy this study Bible and take it with you to church gave regular people the power to interpret the Bible for themselves. And at a time, contextually, in history, when there was a large division happening in the evangelical church, particularly in America and to some extent in England, between modernism and fundamentalism. There was a kind of this trend at that time that when people would, young men would go off to seminary, and the seminaries at that time were really starting to branch into modernism and adopting a modernist point of view, which is no virgin birth, no miracles of Jesus. It's kind of a very anti-supernatural type of worldview. The text came under extreme scrutiny, and the idea of having the text be inspired by the Holy Spirit was kind of going away. And so just imagine the powerlessness of the person in the pew. Their pastor, their minister, their priest has gone off to seminary and been infused with these modernist ideas. They're bringing them back into their pulpits in the local church. And the regular people are sitting there thinking, what's happening? Like, what am I hearing? Okay. So that's sort of the context in which the Scofield Reference Bible comes into being. And the reaction movement against modernism was called fundamentalism. And fundamentalism was the conservative reaction to modernism that was trying to preserve the fundamentals of the faith. The Scofield Reference Bible became widely used among fundamentalists, and it gave the ability to regular people to interpret the Bible because they could read the notes. It kind of demystified a little bit what their pastor was doing up in the pulpit. They had this handy dandy commentary that was embedded with the biblical text. Again, this was a fairly new and novel concept, but this is the one that was the most widely circulated, okay? But what you have to know about a study Bible is that every study Bible in existence has a point of view. And the Scofield Reference Bible, its particular specific point of view was that of dispensationalism. Now, if you don't know what dispensationalism is, it's basically a framework for interpreting the Bible that divides history into different and distinct periods or dispensations, okay? And these are different ways that God interacts with humanity. This originated in the 19th century with John Nelson Darby. Now, dispensationalists will claim it goes back to the church fathers, but I'm just going to say, for the sake of this conversation, the fully fledged, more developed framework originates with Darby and then is developed from there. And it really, one of its key distinguishing features of this approach to theology is that it emphasizes a sharp distinction between Israel and the church as separate entities in God's plan, with Israel's promises, most notably the promise of the land to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, as being a permanent promise that there ought to be an expectation of being literally fulfilled, that Jews would return to the land. There would be a future millennium of 1,000 years, and after the church is raptured. These are some of the general features of the dispensational framework. If you still don't know what I'm talking about, if you've ever seen this chart hanging in a church or in a Bible or something like that in your Sunday school class as a kid, this is how you know that you have entered into dispensational theology. And there's all of these different time periods and connections and this very kind of complex way and framework and lens of how to interpret the Bible. This is a summary of dispensational theology. Well, the Scofield Study Bible played a significant role in the popularization of dispensational theology. This is, again, a reaction to modernism. It is a fundamentalist effort of preserving the faith. Let's go back to the Wikipedia entry. The Scofield Bible has had a significant influence on the Christian Zionist movement. The work states that anti-Semitism is a sin, citing Genesis 12:3. I will bless them that bless thee, and to finish that, I will curse those who curse thee. Scofield argued that the man or nation that lifts a voice or hand against Israel invites the wrath of God. These notes played a big role in American Christianity, in particular, in the fundamentalist movement, to guide people toward a sympathy toward the Jewish people. Now, in the late 40s, when Israel was suddenly a nation, this was seen by many dispensational Christians as a clear sign of the truthfulness of the dispensational framework. If your average Baptist, charismatic, there was a lot of major Protestant denominations, Calvary Chapel, the Vineyard, they were all in this dispensational fundamentalist stream. My old school, Biola University, the whole Bible college movement largely came out of dispensationalism. And there was this very kind of pro-Israel sentiment centering the Jews in God's plan of salvation. That has been, for most of the 20th century, kind of the ethos of a lot of American Christianity. Now, I'm not talking here about Presbyterians, Methodists, Lutherans, Catholics. The existence of the geopolitical state of Israel is not embedded strongly in their theology, okay? So going forward, after the Candace Owens tweet, I thought, well, maybe I can ignore this. But then this happened.
You're saying is the Scofield Bible, its theology is deceptive.
A very wealthy, very charismatic preacher
named John Darby came with this doctrine that's now referred to as the Secret Rapture or the pre-tribulation rapture. And guess who he was connected to, by the way? The Rothschilds.
Interesting.
Have you ever heard of a Scofield Bible?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so C.I. Scofield was basically a student of John Darby, and he adopted that part of the doctrine, and he incorporated that into the Bible. It was the first Bible ever made that had study notes with it. It became so popular, every Christian was reading it, every minister was reading it, including me, including my own father. For a long time, that's what we believed too. But when you start actually going back and reading line by line by line what is said that will be leading up to Jesus coming back, which is when the rapture happens, it's the inverse of what John Darby put down.
My sense was the Scofield stuff, which has had massive implications for our foreign policy, for example, and on our domestic politics, was probably a lie. I do know that translation or that commentary on the Bible has had massive effects on our politics that have been very, very negative and resulted in the deaths of a lot of people.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Now, there's some there that I would agree with. I think it's historically accurate that Scofield used a lot of Darby's ideas and developed them. It is true that the Scofield Bible was, I don't know if it was the first to have study notes, but it was definitely the biggest and the most widely distributed and sold. The account there is a little truncated in that it's not giving you some of the historical context about the modernist and fundamentalist controversy. I will say that it is accurate that it did have a profound impact on shaping a lot of American Christians' views of Israel, and especially after Israel suddenly became a state after World War II. So there's some truths in what they're saying, but then there's also some claims that they're making that I'm like, okay, I don't really know if that's substantiated, because what they want to connect it to is the Rothschilds. Now, if you don't really know what the Rothschilds conspiracy is, the gist of it here is that this very prominent and highly secretive Jewish banking family called the Rothschilds, there is this rumor that they were involved on some level with the establishment of Israel. And I haven't looked into that, so I don't know if that's true or not. The part that pertains to the Scofield Bible is that they were also the ones financing the Scofield Bible. And by getting Christians on board with supporting Israel, by using the Bible's dispensational notes that emphasize a future role for Israel, this is kind of the line of thought of a certain group of people, that this is very bad. And so for many of these people who have this concern, they feel like our government is more loyal to Israel than they are to their own people. It's part of a larger narrative and way of looking at the world. Okay. And so the Scofield Bible is put forward as a strategy move by the Rothschild family to help propagate sympathy for Israel in the 20th century. And there are people who are speaking out and saying, no, we should not be so sympathetic to Israel. This is dangerous to our nation and the good of the world. And this is a rumor that is growing and getting exposure now to millions of people. These videos on social media have had millions of views. Now, when I used the word conspiracy theory earlier, I want to make very clear what my position is. I do think some conspiracy theories are actually real. I'm not using it in the usual pejorative way. I think it's a claim that needs to be proven. It needs confirmation. It ought to be looked into by parties and able to be verified even by people that disagree with the issue. You know, when I think about how can I investigate this, let's say, all right, I want to be open to the claim, the rumor that some nefarious Zionist Jews funded the Scofield Bible to further their agenda, and this resulted in the consequence of making American Christians more sympathetic to supporting Israel, and that's a bad thing. Okay, so how do I look into this? Well, I tried to look into it. It's actually kind of difficult to look into and verify. It seems like a lot of the sources all repeat each other. They have a lot of the similar talking points. And when they point you to different things, There's not a lot of primary source information that can support the collusion part of it. But I'm open to the collusion. I just don't see evidence for the collusion. I found a channel here, the Bible Sojourer channel. I watch his content occasionally. He's a dispensational scholar. He's an Old Testament scholar. I like him. He's pretty balanced. I am not a dispensationalist, but I do appreciate watching content from other perspectives. And he actually looked into this rumor too. I think he has a very balanced approach in general. He's very research oriented in his approach, not sensational. And so I want to play for you his conclusion.
But what I did find by going back to the original sources, there's a guy, Gabeline, who actually was a contemporary of Scofield, who actually wrote a history of the Scofield Reference Bible. Okay, so he's got some good things to say. So he actually talks about the funding of the Scofield Reference Bible. So this is a source from the time of Scofield, and he's talking about the funding of it. And he lists 4 individuals that are involved with this. Okay, so he lists Alwyn Ball Jr. of New York. He lists John T. Perry of Chicago, John Boos of St. Louis, and Francis E. Fitch of New York. Okay, so those are the 4 individuals that I was able to find in researching high and low for all of this. And, you know, best I can tell, I've tried to research as much as possible. Nothing Jewish about them. Their names are definitely not Jewish, that's for sure. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any Jewish ancestry in those names whatsoever. Nothing that I could find about them was Jewish. But according to multiple sources, the 2 individuals most prominent in funding the Scofield Bible were Perry and Ball. Okay, those are the two men, Alwyn Ball of New York and Perry of Chicago. So basically the background to that is in 1902, Scofield, making these connections, basically becomes convinced he needs to resign from the pastorate and start working on the study Bible. And so he does that in 1902. And then you have Gabeline, who helps him secure the funding from these individuals for that project. You have Francis E. Fitch, who actually is the primary guy who helps handle the publishing for Oxford. And so, yeah, I mean, I just don't see any evidence whatsoever. Like I went and I looked. I mean, Webben is saying this is a slam dunk argument. But again, I think this is just kind of ridiculous to make these kinds of appeals and expect people to believe you if there's no kind of evidence for that.
Yeah, and I have to say that I pretty much found the same as this guy. That's why I just played the clip. I don't really have anything else to add to it. And so as of right now, I am disputing the whole Rothschilds funded the Scofield Bible to purposefully invoke sympathy on American evangelicals to Israel internet rumor. As far as I can tell, there is not primary sourced evidence to support this claim. Now, if you have that primary sourced evidence, please send it to me. I will make a follow-up video. I will correct the record, but I have looked. I honestly can't find any direct evidence for this claim, but I know that those videos have millions of views. People are repeating this over and over again. So the best I can say is it's always a good rule of thumb. Whenever you hear someone make a claim, ask questions, ask for primary sources. Where is this person getting their information? So that's my answer as of today to the Scofield Reference Bible internet rumor.
Hey, if you enjoyed this content, come check out the Center for Biblical Unity. Download our free ebook, Is Christianity a White Man's Religion? Click on the link in the description below.